Welcome to episode 11. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're coming back, thank you for listening in again. Today, I wanted to talk about a few things. One is the supply chain issues and inflation, what inflation is causing here in Canada. We've heard a lot about the Prime Minister of Canada calling in the CEOs of grocery stores to talk about what can we do about food prices. So there's been a concern about inflation, and I think this generally around the world, which has been caused by supply chain issues that have hung on since the pandemic and since the crisis that's going on in Europe. And I want to talk about that in the context of the holiday season coming up, and also how that impacts insurance and what typically happens in times of kind of recession or financial pressure, how fraud typically rises. So the first thing, as we come into the holidays, and we think of now here in North America, we're coming up to Thanksgiving in Canada in a couple of weeks, and then Thanksgiving in the US in a month, and Black Friday and Christmas and New Year. So lots of holidays, lots of retail sales happen in this fourth quarter. And with consumers concerned about pricing and expensive prices, the retailers will be challenged to win the business. Being price competitive is important as ever. And so the way retailers can think about the promotion is thinking about halo driving item. Historically, when we've seen retailers promote, let's say for Thanksgiving, we see a Thanksgiving promotion, the turkey, and then you see the pumpkin pie and potatoes and Brussels sprouts and all the fixings around the turkey as part of the promotion. And I'd say this is called over-theming the promotion. What I would say with the concept of the halo is you don't need to promote all the items that are driven by that key item, in this case of Thanksgiving being the turkey. Turkey drives a big halo of purchases because most consumers, not all consumers, but most consumers will do their entire shopping basket. So if you win the turkey, you win the basket. So one thing, the way to control prices is the turkey is the product that's got as a key value item. It has high penetration. It appeals to a lot of consumers, and it drives a large basket because of all the Thanksgiving fixings that you typically buy with that. So that key value item is one you can win. Now, using the halo economics, you can offer a lower price on turkeys than you would normally, which is great in this tough times, satisfy some of the consumer concerns about inflation. So you're picking an item that they really care about. That's a fairly big ticket item, and you can make up some of the margin on some of the halo items. Now, the halo items don't have so much penetration, and you can justify not discounting them, right? And that's a fair exchange, that giving the consumer a discount on the key items and then charging a regular price on the items in the halo, or maybe a small discount, but overall you're blending out the basket margin. And this is a way for retailers to be able to maintain profitability while still transferring good prices to consumers on the key products they care about. Now, in terms of theming, if you promote the halo driver like the turkey and all the fixings, then you're taking up a lot of ad space. By eliminating all the halo items out of the ad space, you can now do other products. Because guess what? Not every consumer celebrates Thanksgiving, and they don't all buy turkey. Some families will eat a roast beef instead, and some families just don't celebrate Thanksgiving and do something totally different. And if you over-theme your promotions to Thanksgiving, you're essentially ignoring all of the consumers who don't celebrate Thanksgiving. But now you've freed up ad space from not promoting the halo. We can now appeal to multiple customers, and we can find other key halo driving items around this time of year, be that other holiday items, or it could be looking forward to Black Friday or Christmas and getting early purchases, or other food items that are halo drivers. Typically produce and meat drive a kind of meal halos or weekly shop halos. The idea is to find items that appeal to different consumers, so you have non-overlapping halos, and that way you'll get the maximum consumer interest. And you can always offer a low price on those halo items because you can make up the margin in the basket. So this is a way for grocery CEOs to meet the request of the government, is to deliver efficient pricing to customers, something that's addressing the inflationary concerns by looking at the key items, because the key value items are typically all the staple food items that people buy on a weekly basis. They're the ones that have high transaction penetration, and they typically have high halo because they're associated with the weekly shop or large purchase. So identifying these key value items with the big halo is critical And this is a way, this is a solution for the grocery CEOs to perhaps satisfy some of the consumer concerns about giving prices, good prices on these key items. And then consumers would have the reality of having lower inflation on some of the items that they buy all the time and having a fair exchange on the halo items, which are low frequency, less of a key value driver. And now that you've freed up the ad space by not over promoting, so I call micro theming, we should micro theme events because not every consumer is wrapped up in that one majority event. Like Super Bowl Sunday, what do we see? We see chicken wings, barbecue sauce, beer, but like, I don't know, what, 11% of people watch the Super Bowl, and maybe that's the wrong statistic, but it's a not everybody. So again, let's micro theme the event. Like micro theming is key. That way you can find items that appeal to all your consumers, not just the ones that are associated with that big event on that day. So I think this is critical as we go into the holidays, both to maximize winning the consumers, because if you promote these key items, you will attract consumers, you'll get more transactions, which again gives you more ability to lower the prices even more because you'll make it up in the basket. So transactions times basket is increased sales. So the retailer can see the sales lift, but they can do it at a fair exchange with consumers. And that way consumers won't feel that the retailers are gouging them. And perhaps the grocery CEOs can come back with a play like this to satisfy the government's concerns. I believe this is a good strategy to win-win over the holidays. And in general, this is something we should do all the time. Now, on the insurance side, as we get into times of financial pressure and inflation and people are having trouble making ends meet, this is when we see fraud, waste, and abuse rise. So consumers, unfortunately, looking for creative ways to prop up their income by either submitting fraudulent claims or colluding with practitioners to do services that aren't rendered, or abusing services, or providers charging for services they didn't render, or upcoding procedures that are unnecessary. So all the various forms of fraud, waste, and abuse, be that in healthcare or filing for a claim opportunistically. You got your golf club stolen out of your car, you got your fancy stereo ripped off, or you had windshield damage, which wasn't really the case. So there's lots of creative ways, unfortunately, that people need to go to in times of financial duress. And so at these times, we typically see fraud detection is more critical. When you observe a change in behavior of a group of people, be that the claimant, the individual, or it could be the provider or the third-party provider in the case of healthcare, or the third party in the case of collision or body shops or towing companies, the third parties or payees associated with the claim, or groups of people colluding in an organized way to do fraud, waste, and abuse. So clearly seeing, is there a change in behavior? Were these people okay before, and have we observed a change in behaviors? We're coming up to the end of the year. Again, the end of the year, a holiday time, creating even more financial burden for people, not just because prices have been going up, but because they want to celebrate the holidays and there's more expenditures. So at these times, there's more pressure to do this. So have we observed a change in behavior, doing that sophisticated AI outlier detection to say, who are the people where we've observed behavior changes in terms of their claiming behavior, in terms of providers or clinics or groups of individuals or families? Do we see change in behavior from Q1 of this year to Q2 to Q3 to Q4, even going back further? Have we observed a change in behavior over the last few years? Because the financial pressure creeps up. It's not typically a one-time event unless you perhaps lose your job or something like that. But again, that's a key outlier detection thing. And I know the statistics from the last big recession was 2008-9, that crisis. Fraud went up by about 26% in that time. So again, to keep the cost of insurance down and making sure that insurance companies can deliver on their services at reasonable prices. We don't want insurance companies having to pass the cost of fraud back to the cost of insurance, right? So using sophisticated AI methods, we can focus in on the change in behavior caused by change in external economic conditions and do sophisticated outlier detection there. So there's some advice using AI in these times of financial difficulty, in the times of coming up holidays, things that retail CEOs and insurance companies can do to combat the financial pressure that consumers are feeling, and in a way be efficient, deliver good prices, low-cost services by eliminating inefficiency in the business processes, which is what AI is about. Executing better, executing more efficiently, lowering prices for everyone, and that will take the pressure off of consumers to a certain degree. So hope you enjoyed that. As always, please feel free to follow up with comments or questions. If you want to have a chat with me in person, I would be more than happy to do that, whether it's recorded or not recorded. Love the collaboration. As always, you can subscribe at Spotify and YouTube. And thanks so much for tuning in.